Bonjour tout le monde. Aujourd'hui, nous allons parler de chapitre 8 à la maison, grammaire 1, specifically at YER verbs. So in this chapter, we've been learning to ask for, give, and refuse permission, and tell how often you do things. Later in the chapter, we'll learn to describe a house and talk about where things are. So again, today specifically, we're looking at YER verbs. So, YER verbs is another type of a boot verb. So what that means is all of the verb forms inside of the boot will have a spelling change, whereas the two forms on the outside, for news and booze, will not have that same spelling change. So let's look at the verb nettoyer, we said, which means to clean. So for the je form, we have je nettoie. Tu form would be nettoie. Il, elle, on, nettoie. And il, elle, plural, nettoie. So the reason this is a boot verb is inside the boot, so the je, tu, il, elle, on, and il, elle, plural forms, instead of having that Y, the Y changes into an I. Outside of the boot, it's not going to have the spelling change, so the Y is going to stay. So we have nous nettoyons and vous nettoyez. Okay. So some other verbs that follow this same pattern that are similar to nettoyer are balayer, which means to sweep, envoyer, which means to send, essayer, to try on, or essayer de, to try to, and payer, to pay for. Now these verbs are all completely regular in the past tense, so you don't have to do anything special with the Y. So nettoyer in past tense, the je form would be j'ai nettoyé. So you still just drop your ER and add your E with an accent aigu. Okay. Now if it's easier to think about this vertically, you could just put a little slice in between the first 5 letters, N-E-T-T-O, and then your ending, which would be Y-E-R. If it's easier to think about your endings as being I-E, I-E-S, I-E, Y-O-N-S, Y-E-Z, I-E-N-T, that's perfectly fine. You can do that for any of the verbs. So for payer, it would be the P-A on the front side, whereas the Y-E-R, envoyer, any of them will work the same way. Alright, so that's all for tonight. So pause, rewind, review if needed. Jot down any questions you have, and we'll go further into depth in this when we get together as a class. So for tonight, bonne nuit tout le monde.